Let's look at the presidential race in Pennsylvania next on Behind the Headlines.
This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Maura Donnelly, an associate of Susquehanna Valley Center. Maura, welcome.
Thank you, Charlie.
Do you have your photo ID?
I do. I've had one for a long time.
Okay, very good. I'm going to ask you for it, but I'm not going to make you have it to participate in the show today.
I have to tell you that I was asked last time I voted for it. I think they were just getting people warmed up to the idea, but this year I don't have to show up with it, I guess.
This particular election,
Right,
apparently.
right.
Oh, but they must by law ask you for it, whether you have it or not. I remember, I'm so old, I remember when we had voter registration cards, Maura.
I just found mine yesterday.
Well, it might come in handy.
Cleaning my office, found it, yeah.
Well, today we're going to talk about the presidential election. We're going to talk about the presidential election in Pennsylvania, and with us we have two of the best people in the Commonwealth to do that. We have Mike Barley, who is the executive director of the Pennsylvania Republican Party since 2011. Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Mary Isenhour, who is the former executive director of the Pennsylvania Democratic Committee in the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, and she served in that capacity from 2006 to 2010. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thanks, Charlie. It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to have both of you here. And there's been harmony on the set. We're happy to report. And despite the most recent polls, as of the taping today has the president ahead of Governor Romney by 1 point, according to Susquehanna polling. What do you think of the trajectory of the polls so far, Mary?
Well, I don't think any of the polls that we've seen in recent weeks are surprising at all. I think everybody, whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican operative in this state, expected the gaps to close. As we get closer to the election, I think in the next few weeks it really comes down to turning out the vote, and at the end of the day, it's which side's going to get their vote out. I think Democrats were very fortunate that we do enjoy a voter registration edge, and our challenge is to make sure that we get all those Democrats out to vote on Election Day.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, the last time that a Republican won in Pennsylvania was 1988. George Bush Sr. Can Governor Romney win Pennsylvania?
Well, George Bush Sr. was a Northeastern Republican, and so was Mitt Romney. And we feel very confident that after Governor Romney's debate performance the other night, we've seen a major shift. A lot of times they say you don't see a shift from debates, but we've seen that. You can see it in the polling. The Pew poll has come out. There's been an 8-point shift nationally, but in Pennsylvania you can see the tightening occur, and I agree with Mary. This is a turnout election. A lot of elections in Pennsylvania are turnout elections. We have very divided sides. There's a fight for the undecided voters in the middle, but really it's getting your base out and making sure you get your base out. We feel like we have an enthusiasm advantage on our side this election. The Democrats certainly had it in 2008, but we feel like there's been a major shift in our advantage.
Well, I have to tell you both that last Saturday morning my doorbell rang twice within about 20 minutes of one another. I was a little bit surprised by that because that doesn't happen very often in my neighborhood. First time it was somebody from the Romney camp, and second time it was somebody from the Obama camp. So I was really pleased to see both sides out working really, really hard on a Saturday morning.
I think that makes Mike and I both very happy.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, it was within 20 minutes. So I was really surprised.
You haven't made your mind up then, so we can work on you afterwards.
I assured both of them that I would be voting. So, okay. But when Susquehanna released its poll recently, or this week, in fact, they said battleground state solidified. Do you both agree with that? That we haven't been on the list of battleground states? Do you think that these new polls place us squarely in the center of this match?
Well, I mean, I feel like Pennsylvania is a battleground. We're a state that continually swings back and forth between Republican and Democrat control. Right now, we're in a Republican cycle, in my opinion. We have the governor's office, and we have, control of 12 congressional seats. the state house, state senate. I feel like we're poised to have make a run at the president's office. So yeah, I believe we are a battleground state. I think elections here are always close, unless there's a wave of some sort. I think we saw it in 2010. I think we saw it in 2008. But elections traditionally here are very close.
I agree with that. And I mean, elections here are always close. It seems to be that they're always close. Unfortunately, if it were up to Mike and I to make that decision on whether or not we were a battleground state, I think we would both agree that we're a battleground state. Unfortunately, it's not up to us. It's up to the national campaigns. And apparently, we haven't seen any Mitt Romney ads on the air, or even some of the super PACs or the independent expenditures have not been putting anything on the air here. And I think the minute that we see one of those ads go up on network TV, then I think we'll know we've come back to being a battleground state.
We're on the radar now.
Yeah,
The one thing, I'm sorry, Mary, the one thing that has changed is the early voting that takes place in some other states, and the shift there to try to go to the early voting states. Ohio is an early voting state. And then the last 2 weeks could be, we could be definitely in play here.
That's absolutely right. There are 40 states right now that are already voting. And I think a lot of resources, both sides, are being dumped into those states right now. So,
Well, there's a new study out just the other day from the University of Colorado. And this particular study has been done by Professors Kenneth Vickers and Michael Barry. And they use economic data to look at they use state-level economic data to look at and to try to predict political trends. And according to them, this goes against perhaps the current wisdom that not only will Governor Romney win Pennsylvania, but he will win the presidential election by 330 electoral votes. Of course, you need 270 to win. Their average era in the past, this type of study has been done and predicted every president successfully back through 1980. But apparently they do have a margin of error, and that's 5 states or 28 electoral votes. So if you run 28 electoral votes on both sides, then it gets to be a dead even heat again. I don't know. Do you have any reactions to this particular study? Both of you look at it. Mike, why don't we start with you?
Brilliant, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's great. I mean, I think that, look, we're looking for a win. It doesn't matter if it's won by 1 electoral votes or I think I can speak for Mary. I'm not sure that it matters what kind of win it is. It's about winning elections. And in Pennsylvania, we're used to that. If we win by 1 vote, that's a landslide in a state with 1 million more registered Democrats than Republicans. So, I think that you look at the current climate and you see how the debate has shifted the numbers. It's possible there could be a wave for us, I think. I still feel like that is a possibility for us, considering the current national climate. And I think that folks have a very strong opinion towards the president. I think Mitt Romney, all he did in the debate was get people more comfortable with him, and he has a lot more room to grow his numbers. So I think that's possible. But like I said, I just want to win.
Mary, what do you think? Did you see the poll?
No, I have not seen I have
it's
not.
It's not a poll. It's a study.
Yeah.
And no, I have not seen that particular study. Right now there are a ton of studies out there, that predict that Obama's going to win because of this, and Governor Romney's going to win because of this. And at the end of the day, I'm not really sure, and not to discredit the study. I'm sure it's a very valid study, and a lot of effort was put into it. But at the end of the day, nobody really goes back and looks at those studies. It was really funny the other day after the Eagles-Steelers game. I saw somebody had posted on one of the social media networks that because the Steelers won that game, that Romney was going to win Pennsylvania. that him winning was based.
What's the matter with
that? Hey, I'm all for the Steelers. Sorry, Eagles fans. Sorry, Governor Rendell. I'm a Steelers fan.
That conflicts me. I'm an Eagles fan.
So I mean, there are a lot of different studies and different predictions out there based on some pretty different things and sometimes very odd things. So, again, as Mike said, a win is a win. We'll take it however it comes. It's 50% plus one. And we're ready to deliver that for the president.
More, the thing with this study, though, that may be different from it being done in the past is now the role of social media. It's different, and it seems like President Obama is using social media at this point more effectively than Governor Romney. I don't know. What do you think, Laura?
President Obama used social media more effectively than anybody 4 years ago, and it was really relatively new at that point, but he was highly successful at working online, raising money online. So I don't see that as being any different now. But social media is big because people can make crazy statements like because the Steelers won. It's hard to say. It really is hard to say.
You're up.
Well, let's talk directly to the undecideds for a second. What do you each see as the defining difference between your candidates that might help the undecideds, sway the undecideds? I mean, Romney's favorable rating is up a little bit even higher than the polls, actually, so that you've got some people are paying attention. They paid attention to the debate. But what do you see as the defining issue that would help the undecided Pennsylvanians?
I think the deciding issue is jobs. You look at every poll, the number one issue in everybody's mind is jobs. Right now, with unemployment at 7.8%, we continue to hemorrhage jobs here. I think we're looking at undecided voters. It's really the security. When it comes down to it, is my family going to be secure at the end of the day? Does my spouse have a job? My family taken care of? Do I have good schools to go to? Am I protected at home? And I think when it comes down to it, Mitt Romney has the better message on how he's going to create jobs by helping our country become energy independent, by decreasing regulation, making sure that we have more opportunities for our business owners to create jobs and grow this economy. I feel very confident that the Mitt Romney plan is the plan that will help get our country going. And I think that's what undecided voters are looking for.
I absolutely agree with Mike that jobs and the economy are the most important issue in undecided voters' minds. And I think, if you look at what the president's done for the last 4 years, he inherited a recession from the previous administration. We're in a recovery. Just on Friday, the new jobs numbers came out. The unemployment rate is dropping. The president saved the auto industry. That helped create more jobs. The banking crisis, he solved that, and we are on the road to recovery. The big question remains, is it enough recovery for the undecideds who've not made up their mind? But I still go back to in a state like Pennsylvania, where Democrats outnumber Republicans, and all the polls have been very, very clear. This election is very polarized, especially here in Pennsylvania. Republicans are voting for Republicans, and Democrats are voting for Democrats. And at the end of the day, it's a turnout election, as Mike said when we started this conversation a few minutes ago.
But in Pennsylvania, like the nation, roughly, and I know it doesn't work out exactly that, but roughly across the nation, leading into the Obama administration, about 1/3 of us were Republicans, 1/3 of us were Democrats, 1/3 of us were independents, and it seems that the independents are going to decide this election, as they do so many. And what are both campaigns doing specifically to appeal to the independents, Mike?
Well, the first thing we're doing, what we've been doing all year, is really identifying who those independents are, because there are independents on registered Republican and registered Democrat, especially Democrats in Southwest PA for us, more of the Republicans in the southeastern collar counties that tend to vote Democrat or Republican depending on the election. Really, it's identifying those voters and going door to door and phone calls. That's how we do that.
They found me.
Correct. And once we do that, it's finding out what issues drive them, and then it's trying to message our candidate's message to them as many times as possible to try to convince them that our candidate is the best for their deserves their vote and will enact a good policy for them in the future.
Mary, what about
I think
how about the Democratic Party?
I think we're probably doing the same thing in the southeast part of the state that they're doing in the southwest part of the state. So, it's identifying who those undecided independents are. But again, at the end of the day, it's who has the most voters in the state, and who's going to turn them out?
Well, I'm going to give you the last word here, both of you. I didn't just look at one.
No, it's
both
fine.
Of you. What do you want Pennsylvania voters to know about your candidate?
Look, I think when you're looking at a country where we have $16 trillion in debt, we have gas prices that have gone up 108% from the time the president's been in office.
Killing us.
They are, and they're killing business. And I think we need to have a president who is going to come in there and lead in a manner that's going to allow the private sector to create jobs. It's going to lower taxes, cut regulations on businesses, allow them to grow. I think one of the biggest things that we need our president to do is to repeal Obamacare. I think it's going to be a detrimental effect on all our small business, and it's certainly going to cause the deficit to increase and our prices to rise. So I think if you want a president that has experience growing the economy, has led a state, Mitt Romney's the guy for Pennsylvania and for the country.
Mary?
I think if you want a president who is going to continue to move this country forward, who is going to fight for the middle class, who is not going to give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans, those people that make over $250,000 a year, at the expense of people that make under $250,000 a year, then I think, re-electing our president is what you want to do.
Okay, you have heard these representatives, Mike Barley for the Republicans, for Governor Romney, and Mary Isenhour for the Democratic Party, for President Obama. So we hope you have more information, and we hope that you'll go out to vote.
Vote.
Right?
Vote, yes.
That's
Absolutely.
right. Maura and I agree. We'll be back with the second and last segment of Behind the Headlines right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, helping hospitals to provide healing, health, and hope to communities across the state. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Underwriters of America, a better way for truck insurance. And by Penn Waste, your best local choice for your waste removal and recycling needs.
Hi, welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. On this segment, I am fortunate enough to have Mr. Ed Arnold with us. Mr. Arnold is the chairman of Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and he, as a businessman, was the president and CEO, the owner of New Penn Trucking and Arnold Trucking and Arnold Logistics. So he certainly knows about the economy, and of course he has filed his frequent Arnold reports with us for the last year, and we look forward to the next one. Today we have Mr. Arnold here because of the presidential election, and we want to ask him what we can expect. Ed, welcome to the show.
See you, Charlie.
It's nice to have you back. But as the presidential election approaches, now we just had the former executive director of the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania here and the current executive director of the Republican Party here. And they were telling us the pros and cons of the two candidates and the progress of their two campaigns in Pennsylvania. What would the business community say if Governor Romney wins? What can we expect to see in the way of the economy? If President Obama is reelected, what can we expect to see in terms of the economy? Which one would you like to do first?
Well, let me just, first of all, lay out the philosophy of the two people and then what, of course, they're going to do and what the reaction would be. Romney, being a businessman, basically, he is being asked continually, what are you going to do? Well, first of all, as a person in business, you hire the brightest and the best. You have them, in this case, this is the largest business in the world, the U.S. government, at something north of $4 trillion. They really can't count very well because it's too confusing. And therefore, these people will then get back and get together He would listen, which is what he's very good at. And then they would come to a consensus of what we do in each area. So yes, there is a broad guideline which we will talk about, but people keep complaining they want specifics. With Obama, you should be able to get specifics because he's been president for 4 years, which he doesn't want to talk about his record. In Obama's case, Romney believes in the free enterprise. He believes the American people, if given a reasonable chance, a la not destroyed by regulations and government overlay, that it can in fact grow and prosper. America has real challenges, there's no question about it. But his solution is to let the free enterprise system, which is what has made America great and made any country that has succeeded in the world great. Countries with 5-year plans don't do well. Countries that are ruled by the top down don't do well. Those that actually try to work in consensus. Even Bill Clinton, when the people told him that, look, we want you to take a different course, he, with the Republicans, in a very transparent manner, did in fact change. And we got some very good legislation. Primarily welfare reform was one of his great accomplishments. It was not Clinton's reform. It was a partnership between the Republican Congress and Senate and Clinton. What we have with Obama is, I know best. I tell you, and I'm sorry you haven't gotten the message, and I'm going to keep telling it to you till you finally get it.
Well, that goes back to his comment earlier about that he regrets that he doesn't believe that he's explained his administration's policies clearly enough, and that if you only understood the story properly, that things would be better for his campaign. Did you hear that particular
That is correct.
expression?
He has continually said that. He has no intentions of changing. We have zero transparency. We have zero cooperation. Romney has shown when he, as governor, where he worked with an overwhelming Democratic state, yet he got a lot of legislation passed. He did work with the other side. Whereas Obama has shown he never talks to the Republicans about anything. He just tries to bully through the Democrats and make sure they all stay in line. So what can you expect to happen in health care, which is one of our great challenges? Again, when he sees the entire depth of it, will Romney actually follow through in some of the things he's advocated? One thing he's going to do, he is going to drastically either eliminate Obamacare, but really he's going to take some of the points that must be addressed. One is pre-existing conditions. He is talking about putting that to the states. Now, again, the states are going to need money then to handle that. So how that's going to be handled is somewhat up in the air. He's talking about block grants. He's talking about a lot of areas, but when he gets into it, will you realize that the severity of the problem, the complexity of the problem, he may change.
Letting insurance companies sell insurance across state lines.
Yes, that's one of the things. Basically, reverse with Obama, you know what you're going to get. He has said, here's Obamacare. Now, he hasn't read the law, probably, and we will keep experiencing what it's going to do, but we know several repercussions. Number one, it is...
Of course, Obamacare was largely written by the Congress.
It was overwhelmingly. He had no input in it at all. And as Pelosi so acutely said, well, why don't we pass it and then we'll find out what it's there? You're talking about regulation, strangulation. Here you are, a bill that is thousands of pages long. The regulations will be 10,000 of pages long, and it'll be years before they're written. What we do know is it is going to increase taxes on the wealthy to pay for part of it, which, of course, taxes weren't going to be increased. Secondly, we're going to drastically reduce the compensation for hospitals and doctors, which, again, there is no giant margin of profit in the hospitals, and doctors, if you keep paying them less, will not take the Medicare and Medicaid patients. So therefore, what we're going to end up with is rationed health care. And maybe a dual system where you have most of your countries in Europe, and we have some of it here, not too much right now, and that is you get the government plan. Where it doesn't work, you buy extra supplementary insurance. You have a private plan, so you get the kind of health care you want, specifically in operations. In America today, you do have, in some of the larger cities, but specifically New York, your best doctors say, you pay me cash and I'll do the work. I have nothing to do with the government, period. This is my price.
Well, in the last 3 minutes of our segment, Mr. Arnold, could you tell us a little bit about now? Governor Romney has, I believe, a 60-point plan of what he would do in regard to the economy if he was elected for president.
Well,
and of course, President Obama has engaged in quantitative easing and some other measures. Could you compare those two
basically,
with each other?
The main thing right now is that obviously their tax policy, the one wants to increase taxes and print money and have the government do more and more. We will have more government employees. We'll have more regulation. We will have he is trying to stifle the energy. He hasn't succeeded yet.
This is President Obama.
This is President Obama. Whereas we have stopped the pipeline, he is investigating very hard fracking to see why we can't do it. He has given the Russians and the Chinese the right to gut our fish off the East Coast. What he has done by presidential decree, he has shown the weakness in our Constitution. When the president overreaches and just decrees and ignores the House and the Senate, and then to a certain point almost is circumventing the courts, we have no real power to stop it. In theory, it's a system, but it's very slow and bulky. Under Romney, you will have major trade agreements, right? You will address from strength China. China right now does not respect the United States, and therefore when we complain about you've been manipulating currencies and so on, they really don't take us serious because Obama is not taken serious. We know what happened with Reagan with the hostages. The minute he got in, they knew Reagan was going to take action, and we got the hostages released. I believe China will treat us with more respect, and we will be able to come with the more intelligent trade agreements with not only China but most of the world, where under Obama it is very difficult when you have no respect for your own country, and therefore the world has no respect for us.
Okay, in the last 15 seconds, if Romney is elected, what's going to happen to the national debt? If Obama's going to elected, what's going to happen to the national
because
debt?
Business will expand, employment will expand, the national debt will begin to get under control. It is going to be very difficult, and very frankly, to say that we're going to balance our budget, we're going to have a deficit that will grow at a level that is sustainable. Right now, $1.5 trillion a year is not sustainable. It is a disaster waiting to happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Arnold. So this is, as you can see, we've just begun to scratch the surface, and we will ask you to come back in your homes next week to continue this investigation and continue to look at these issues. We'll be here again next week. We'll see you then on Behind the Headlines.